There are gaps which cannot be addressed very effectively by human intervention alone. That is where AI and IoT form a very strong component. Temperature control is the heart of safe meat science. Temperature monitoring is very critical right from farm to fork.
We are launching this bang in the middle of Food Safety Week, and we thought who better to feature than our very own senior advisor and experienced food scientist, Dr. Deepa Prakash. Dr. Deepa is a food technologist with academic training from the Defense Food Research Laboratory, DRDO, and she has been a scientist at CSIR, Central Food Technological Research Institute at Mysore. She brings experience from a diverse range of the food industry, right from quality assurance, food safety, farm gate processing and the likes. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us today and letting us pick your brain a little bit. I want to start off by asking you about your journey with Atsuya and what inspired you to join us.
I've been in the food industry for the last 25 years, and many times I have seen small cases to large cases of food poisoning, food spoilage, having caused tremendous inconvenience right from the producer's level to the level of the consumer. There are gaps which cannot be addressed very effectively by human intervention alone. That is where AI and IoT form a very strong component. Atsuya technology was pioneering in India in doing that, and I was very excited about the work and the scope of application and research from Atsuya technologies. That's when I hopped on.
That's amazing, ma'am. We're glad that you did. Can you tell us a little bit about the potential risks of lapses in food safety?
Lapses in food safety largely happen due to ignorance in handling, and in particular ignorance in holding temperatures. When there is a lapse in pre-harvest, post-harvest and holding conditions, and in particular when we focus on moisture and temperature, these trigger chances of food spoilage, and in turn makes the food either unusable for consumption, or if it has already been processed, a very high risk for food poisoning.
Right, ma'am. So something that we commonly hear about when in the food industry is farm to fork traceability. So starting from farm, what are some areas that we need to pay attention to when it comes to food safety?
In terms of food safety on the farm level, we have to ensure that there is no soil contamination on the harvested product, because soil contamination would trigger chances of coliforms and microorganisms which can trigger food safety problems and food poisoning. So the temperature of handling, the moisture content of the product is very important. From the farm level, as it is processed, pre-processed rather, and kept ready for the next stage, there again the temperature of holding and the cleanliness, the hygiene, the amount of light in the atmosphere, the amount of oxygen in the room where the product is being held is very critical. Going forward in the food processing chain, be it from the retail line of being a grocery ingredient, be it being a component for food processing in an industry or in a kitchen, the handling of the food is very critical. Temperature of cooking and temperature of storage is very important. Between the temperature of 4 degrees centigrade and 60 degrees centigrade is considered as a danger zone for food. So holding temperature below 4 degrees and holding temperature above 60 degrees is very important, right from the element of cooking, holding and also delivery end mile. In Atsuya technology, we've been doing a lot of interesting research on this, and what we find very interesting is that the end mile delivery, and in particular today where the world is covered with cloud kitchens and most people tend to order in a meal at least once a day, the end mile delivery would entail a certain holding temperature. Now we have defined very clearly across the globe in science, hot foods have to be stored in a hot condition and cold foods in a cold condition. Keeping a food hot in a storage container is quite easy with thermal layering. However, the temperature needs to be monitored. Here is the excitement. We are doing active cooling systems, and that is what we are going to be bringing to the table soon, wherein the end mile delivery of cold foods will still remain within the safest holding temperature.
Atsuya solution is being used by over 95% of organized meat retailers in India. How important do you think temperature control is in that industry?
Temperature control is the heart of safe meat science. Meat is an extremely lucrative commercial industry in India. We have a beautiful cooperative sector for poultry, and rapidly we are advancing into a nice organized sector for the meat industry. When a meat product is kept at cold temperature, it is safe from any microbial contamination. Now, when there is a lapse in holding temperature, that is when the food product becomes extremely rich and viable for any bacterial contamination to happen. When a food product goes through a freeze thaw cycle and that is not monitored, that becomes a risk for the consumer.
That's very interesting. Another closely related industry to meat is the dairy industry. So how can the dairy industry leverage technologies like IoT and AI?
Dairy is a very exciting industry. India is the largest producer of milk and dairy products, and we are a cooperative sector in the dairy industry, being a sterling example for the world in excellence. The dairy industry is very, very delicate, right from the temperature of handling the milk from the point of drawing in villages, where it is stored in milk storage centers and brought to the dairy, the processing plant in trucks. Temperature control is very, very important. When temperature is not taken care of here, very high chances of milk being so delicate to spoil. At the dairy industry, the processing temperature of pasteurization, holding as well as storage is very important. Now, the dairy industry gives you a lot of beautiful byproducts. Other than just milk, you have butter, cheese, ice cream. In particular, ice cream, when it is manufactured at the processing facility, it will be stored at the correct temperature, which runs into negatives, -4 degrees. But by the time it reaches the retailer, we are not very clear about what temperature changes have happened. This is very important for us to monitor. At the retail end or in the cycle of transport from processing to the retail end, if there is a freeze thaw process which happens, which is not monitored, it is very likely that this product would actually attract microbial growth, which could trigger food safety issues and food poisoning on consumption. The milk industry runs on pasteurization as a very critical part of processing. Whenever we pasteurize a product, there is something we do as a quality assurance test, and this actually pertains to an indicator organism. When this particular set of indicator organisms is absent after processing, we know that the temperature cycle has been safe.
Absolutely. So food safety is one side of the coin. The other and the more commercial side is spoilage and wastage and all the losses that come with it. So what percentage or how much of these losses can be attributed to temperature?
Let's look at the fruit and vegetable segment in India. We are the second largest producer of fruit and vegetable in the world. However, about 20% of the fruit and vegetable produced in the farms are wasted today. When fruit is harvested, managing the fruit at the right temperature will ensure that the fruit and vegetable lasts long enough. Sanitizing the fruit at the farm gate level and storing it in cold rooms at the right temperature and the right moisture content is very important to ensure there is freshness and there is also no chance of wilting of the product. Now, wastages in fruit and vegetable can be controlled phenomenally if temperature systems and moisture systems are put in place through IoT devices.
That's very insightful. The Indian food industry has come a long way in terms of infrastructure. Where do you think technologies like IoT and AI fit in, and what does the future look like according to you?
Putting it very simply, the two levels where IoT is very useful is temperature and moisture control. The third level where it's very interesting is also measuring the amount of light which falls on a food. Sometimes when there is a lot of light being applied to a food product, there are chances of oxidation to happen. Temperature monitoring is very critical right from farm to fork. So what happens is the point at which food is received at the food factory, I would like to say ingredients, and the processing, the holding temperature as well as the point of packaging is very critical. And at the point of packaging, the humidity level of the atmosphere there is very critical as well. Dehumidifiers are very, very often seen where large quantities of food are packed. Now that has to be a very significant measure through an IoT device to ensure that products are not packed at the wrong moisture level. From end to end, IoT and AI play that little role in food industry which fills in the gap of potential human errors.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'm sure this piece of information would be very insightful to food businesses that go the extra mile to ensure the quality of their food and the safety of their consumers. Atsuya Solutions for the food industry is carefully curated under the guidance of Dr. Deepa. This way, we are able to help businesses across the food industry serve their consumers with the promise of safety and quality.